If 2023 is good enough for Mnet, it's good enough for me. Honestly, it still feels a tad bit early to say goodbye to the 4th gen, but it doesn't feel like an entirely bad place to start introducing the 5th. K-pop has grown exponentially since 2017 when I was first introduced to it, and I feel like the industry has changed quite a bit since then too. I was definitely first introduced to 3rd gen groups, but I got to watch the 4th gen grow and define themselves as artists, as a generation, and I am so excited to watch it happen all over again. To me, the most exciting part about welcoming a new generation is seeing what new things they can bring to the table. Sure, K-pop revolves around trends. Retro, punk, Y2K, it's something anyone can do. But each new generation brings something with them, something that goes beyond just the latest trend. It was how Stray Kids defined a genre, how itzy managed to mass-produce an entire concept, how Idol opened doors for more self-produced artists to step through, how ateez created a whole new rubric whenever it comes to performances. It's crazy how all of these things come from old ideas to create something new. And that, to me, is the most exciting thing about a new generation. I see a lot of argument saying that the 5th generation is still a far way out, but honestly, when the industry itself decides that it's time, I don't think there's much we can do as fans to deny it. I think the biggest issue people have is that, to them, a lot of 4th gen groups haven't reached their peak yet. But let me just remind y'all what the 3rd gen were doing way back in 2018.
사랑을 했다 우리가 만나 지우지 못할 추억이 됐다 날 위해 shoot up shoot up shoot up yeah shoot up shoot up shoot up hit you with that do 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 oh yeah oh yeah 난 언제나 no 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 난 언제나 na 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 hey sick of this fake love fake love fake love don't mess up my tempo 들어봐 이건 충분히야 I said don't mess up my tempo.
And that's not even mentioning Girls' Generation having yet another super successful comeback, apex starting their new journey into music with I'm So Sick, and Sumi reminding us why she's the best soloist out there. 2018 was a packed year, and it was certainly not because of the 4th gen. So many 3rd gen groups had some of their most successful songs to this day released right as the 4th gen were starting. It was a tough year for everyone, let alone new faces. But that's not to say that a few didn't prevail anyways. It might not have felt like it at the time, but 2018 was the start of something big. There was a shift in the air, more felt than seen, but it was there, and it was only a matter of time before somebody acted on it. I wish I could say that Stray Kids' debut shocked the world, but honestly, it didn't. Not yet, at least. It did give us a good look into what was to come, though. District 9 may not have been anything new or exciting, but it wore their name proud. It set the stage for what was to come and lit the torch for others to follow. Stray Kids knew from the very beginning what their story would be and how they would tell it. District 9 may not have been anything more than just a jumping off point for that, but without it, we likely wouldn't have any of the other songs out there today. The songs that truly define Stray Kids as artists. Idol absolutely set out from the very beginning to prove something. La Ta Ta was just catchy enough to put them on basically everyone's radar. Even throughout the fierce competition, they managed to stand out with only a few songs to their name. Not to mention, they brought something new to the table. Soyeon. Having a completely self-produced group so early on into their careers was already rare, but put that title on a girl group and it was practically unheard of. Looking back now, this was just a small glimpse into what Idol had to offer, and I'm sure they still have so much more in store for us even now.
Now it's been a long day. I haven't seen you today. You're somewhere, I'm sure.
Loona may not have been on the top of their game yet back in 2018, but there is a reason why they are so well known today. And no, it is not only because of Stan Loona. Loona offered something that nobody else did. A cinematic experience, a glimpse into a new world. They took storytelling literally and created a whole new atmosphere within their music. Loona may not have been topping the charts, but they were preparing for a festival, one that would wear their name proud. Sometimes, all it takes is a seed and a watchful eye to see the flower bloom in full. Or sometimes the flower sprouts from the roots like a parasitic plant, consuming everything in its path. Sure, neither Pirate King or Treasure may have been as big as some of the other songs on this list at the time of their release, but ateez has been on a steady incline ever since that day. If you ask me, it's pretty rare to see a group have such a natural rise to recognition, and the fact that ateez has yet to hit any real snags in the road is not only impressive, but kind of crazy too when you think about it. ateez has always been one of the front runners in this race, and looking back now, it's crazy to see which position they were in when they started it. 2018 was a hell of a year, and yet they're one of the groups that comes to mind when I think of it. But I think we're forgetting someone pretty important. Now here's a debut that truly had people holding on for more. IZ*ONE found themselves in a pretty favorable position whenever they debuted. Coming off of one of the biggest TV programs out there, their careers were set in this industry. Add some damn good music to that, and some rather talented girls, and you have the recipe for success. They had set out on the right foot, and looking back at their careers now, I have to say they never really lost their footing. Sure, there were a few fumbles along the way, but they always managed to get right back up and keep on marching through.
People look at me and they tell me 외모만 보고 내가 날라리가 돼요. So what?
Looking back on the past couple of years we've had, 2019 feels almost small in comparison. But going back and looking at the lineup that we had that year, it's crazy to describe it as such. So many iconic and greatly anticipated debuts, as well as a few that seemed to come out of nowhere. 2019 was the start of 4th Gen's rise. More and more groups were debuting, and more groups were seeing major success. Though, I guess it kinda makes sense when we see who started the year off. itzy didn't come out running. They came out strutting, knowing full well that they had everybody's full attention on them. In a matter of weeks, the whole industry knew itzy's name, and it was a name that would stick. Dalla Dalla was new, it was different, it stood out from the crowd while still managing to feel reminiscent of other songs like it. The song quite literally gave way to an entire new concept in K-pop, one that even now others are tweaking and adding their own insights into. 2019 was the year people realized that the 4th Gen had something to offer, and itzy jump-started that revolution in just 3 minutes. Loona was back and stronger than ever. A great song, beautiful music video, and yet another story to tell. Loona continued to set themselves apart from everyone else. Butterfly was majestic in a way few other songs are. The message was simple but effective. Not to mention, the music video still stands as one of the best pieces of media I've ever seen. Loona was continuing on a wonderful path, and they were growing quickly with each and every new release. Yet another debut that had everyone waiting in anticipation. Crown was fresh. It was something that we hadn't seen in a while, even before the noise and experimental music trends took over. Crown was like a breath of fresh air. It was catchy, and it matched the boys' youthful charms. Oh, and did I mention that they were pretty much the start of one of the biggest entertainment companies out there right now? Sure, in the beginning, their major success may not have been from the company name as much as it was from their seniors, but I have no doubt that seeing TXT's success is what gave HYBE the courage to pursue what they have become now, and I'd say that's a pretty major feat. Itzy had just started a revolution. TXT had just helped to create one of the biggest companies out there right now, and Stray Kids and Idol only continued to grow in popularity. And yet, all of that stopped for a moment the second this song dropped. I have no idea what happened to UA marketing department because I had never even heard of the name Everglow before this song, and yet, within a few hours, everyone was singing along. More than anything though, Bomb and Chocolate was just a good song. The girls were clearly very talented, and despite the minor drawbacks that came with debuting a K-pop group under a Chinese company, they were just simply marketed well. Up until now, at least. Bomb and Chocolate may have come out of nowhere, but it is still sitting right there where we left it. Now here's where things get good. Stray Kids may have redeemed themselves with My Pace the year before, but Miro truly turned over a new page for them. It was the first time their music really found people beyond their following, and it proved that they were more than just another boy group from JYP. Miro took everything that they had built so far and flipped it on its head. It may not be their most successful song anymore, but it is without a doubt the song that made people take Stray Kids seriously. Any song that gets as much hate as Itzy did deserves to be in this video. Itzy still encompasses everything that Itzy is. It's fun, exciting, a little bit weird, but who cares? Much like Dalla Dalla, it felt larger than life in some ways, despite the down-to-earth atmosphere in parts of the song. I'll admit, Itzy never really hurt or helped Itzy's career in any way, but it was a fun song, and let's be real, everyone was talking about it, whether it was in a good light or not. Plus, blonde Yuna. Need I say more? Fresh. I have no doubt X1 would have been the talk of the town if things had turned out differently. Even now, the whole situation is all around just shitty, and there really is no good resolution for something like it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this song still stands up to this day. They were on the top of the world when this was released, and everybody was looking out for them. I think they really had a chance to show something to everyone, and it really does suck that it never got to happen. Even if it was just for a few minutes though, I hope it was fun for everyone involved. Wonderland remains one of the biggest and boldest songs I have ever heard. This song quite literally made an entrance, and ateez themselves have only marched on through ever since. 2019 was the beginning of how loud can we make this song trend, but even if it came out now, I don't doubt that its unrelenting pace and callous exterior would prompt it right back to where it was back then. TXT continued to march right down the path that they had continued on. Runaway had a completely different feel to it than Crown did, but it still had that same youthful charm. Runaway had this weird way of feeling magical yet real, almost too much so at some times. Even going back and listening to it now, there are parts that still feel so full of life and enchantments, and then there are parts that feel empty and nearly crude. I don't know if Runaway will always be the song that's talked about in the same way that some of these others are, but I know it will always be a song that some of us will turn back to, maybe even decades later. If 2019 was the year of major debuts, 2020 was the year of major comebacks. So many groups had multiple major releases that year. A lot of these groups that I mentioned earlier finally found their place in the industry, and maybe even a few surprises happened along the way as well. Not to mention even more major debuts towards the end of the year too. By this point, most of the 4th gen were still rookies, but that didn't keep them from showing off all their hard work up to this point. Answer may not have been as big and bold as its predecessor, but it remained a beast in my book. Answer was unlike anything we had seen from ateez before. It remained yet another epic in the ateez storybook, but this one had a more emotional undertone to it. Something about it seemed almost sensitive. Maybe Answer didn't shock people in the way Wonderland did, maybe it wasn't the chapter 1 in the story, but it had something that I think a lot of people even now still hold on to. Passion.
Burn yourself.
And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have So What. If you ask me, So What was the phoenix that rose from the ashes. Sure, this was very unlike Loona, not only in concept but also in style and sound. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So many reasons why this song could have been their last, and so many reasons why this could be the song to set them on the right path once more. With so much to fear, I think the title of the song represents it perfectly. So What? But doesn't it feel like we're missing yet another pretty important player in this game? When I said 2020 was the year of major comebacks, I didn't just mean from the groups above. Although I'd argue the boyz' darker styling starting out on Kingdom, Reveal was their first song to really introduce people to what they had been working so hard on in the performances. Reveal was a big song from the boyz. They were slowly going from a name that you would see floating around every once in a while to reaching mainstream success. This would be the song that showed people that they had what it takes, and I really think that it did just that. What a great reveal. Three whole years later, and I still feel like I can't run from this song. I think what made this song so good was itzy's sincere love for what they did. Sure, by this point, the self-love concept was getting old, but something about seeing them perform with the same enthusiasm as before made it all worth it. Wannabe had an unexpected charm to it, not to mention it was extremely catchy. It still feels just as new today as it did back then. Every time I hear the song, I still get chills. Plus... my god is such an ironic title for a song that is so clearly tainted by devilish desires. While I would argue that Idol had clearly proven themselves to be extremely apt in the art of conceptualization, I think Oh My God is the first time people realized that they had a lot more to show than just good music. The song doesn't really have any big booming moments within the song itself, but when you put it in the middle of everything else, it feels like a giant rumbling beneath the surface. Yet another song that I feel like was everywhere, though I guess that was to be expected. Unlike the others on this list, who almost felt like they were going for something outside of their comfort zone, Secret Story of the Swan felt familiar. aespa knew what they were going for, and with only a few years to fill it with, I don't think they ever felt the need to change, just get better and better with every release. Which is exactly what this song did. While I don't have any qualms with the change, aespa felt like a familiar white light in the sea of ever-changing flashing colors. I love the absolute absurdity of this song. It's like telling a joke with a straight face, but I have to say, I think that is still a great representation of Stray Kids music as a whole. I don't really know where the sudden attention to detail came from, but even if this song hadn't become as well known as it is, God's Menu felt like something new to them. From the music, to the concept, even the music video itself, so much effort was put into every little thing, from the tiniest details to the entire scenes. God's Menu is the definition of impactful, and it is yet another song that still feels just as fresh today as it did back then.
I just wanna be a boy.
Despite being so long in the making, I still feel like Treasure came out of nowhere. They without a doubt always had a lot of support even prior to their debut. I guess I just never really knew what to expect out of them when they did finally debut. They were YG's first and only input into the 4th gen, and for all that it's worth, I think that they've carried the name proud. Boy was yet another great introduction to yet another great group. It wasn't something new or animated, but just like with everyone else, it set up what was to come, and sometimes that's all you can ask for.
Cause I'm not shy. Not shy, not me. Not shy, not shy, not me. Give me da.
Not Shy was surely no wannabe, but it was damn near close. Yet another amazing song by them, and yet another success in their story. I still love the Western influence on this track, especially mixed with the concept that they already had going for them, the glamorous outfits, the little touches of pinks and blues where they all fit, all in the dusty fields of the Wild Wild West. It was amazing, plus that Itzy was just too good not to add. Apparently everybody was doing retro besides the 4th gen if this is the first song to make an appearance. 80s retro drifted throughout the K-pop scene like a plague, but I can't say it was all bad if we got songs like this out of it. The added elements of what felt like badass 80s spy movie is what really helped to elevate the song to the next level. It was definitely a bit different from what they were used to, but it doesn't seem like it was out of their comfort zone at all. This is one of those songs that remains the face of the 80s pop wave that ran through K-pop at the time, and I don't think that's an entirely bad place to be. If Reveal was the boyz' new introduction into the music scene, the Stealer was a sign that they were here to stay. I think for a lot of people, this was their introduction to the group as a whole. It felt similar enough to what everyone else was doing to put them on the map, while still remaining unique enough to separate them from their competition. In the end, the Stealer was just a catchy song that managed to catch on. If it wasn't for everything surrounding it, it could have ended as just that, but it didn't, and I think that's something worth talking about. get back to the retro rush. I feel like Blue Hour is one of those cases where each individual part of the song became even larger than the song itself. The stylings, the concept, the music video, even the individual verses. Everything already felt so tall on its own that when you put it all together, it felt colossal. I really think it's songs and concepts like these that show off what TXT is the best at. It's all the minor details and creativity that goes into everything that makes their music feel so magical at times. Just because 2020 was the year of comebacks doesn't mean that there weren't some stellar debuts thrown in there as well. So Bad was the perfect concoction of the time it was released. It had just a taste of that retro influence that had been running around, enough nods to modern technology to keep it from becoming stale, all while sounding so much like a K-pop song without any name to tie it back to. So Bad was truly a product of its time, but even now, it's still a fun song. Turning everything that 2020 K-pop was on its head, aespa came out wearing the AI concept proudly, and to this day I have no idea what the hell a gwangya is. aespa was clearly a group that conceptually had been in the making for a long time, whether they were expecting to be so different from what everyone else in the scene had been doing or not. Their music had brought so many new ideas to the scene. Black Mamba's futuristic sound was just gleaming with possibilities, and I think they managed to play with it quite a bit. Just one more debut and then I swear I'll be done for a good minute. Enhyphen was obviously going to be a well-anticipated debut, but I don't think many were expecting all that they put out. Given Taken had this almost whimsical feel to it. I don't know why, but the music video has always given me fake docu-film vibes. Like, imagine if The Blair Witch was filmed as a musical. Even the song itself has this almost eerie suspense to it, the verses nearly stopping completely at times before coming back into the full chorus. If groups before them started a revolution, they released the fucking apocalypse. A goodbye song isn't the most exciting thing to talk about after 3 major debuts, but it has to be done. For what it's worth, IZ*ONE had one hell of a final year. 3 major comebacks, each bigger than the last, and one final ballad like no other stayed through when the curtains finally closed. And honestly, I think the song itself gives a better sentiment to that than I ever could. Looking at just the amount of songs 2021 had to offer, you'd think that it was a slow year. But honestly, I just don't think a video like this can do justice to just how widespread all of these songs were. Whether it was TikTok, YouTube, or literally any Spotify playlist at the time, these songs would be playing. Maybe it was the rise of TikTok, maybe it was the pandemic finally driving us all insane, or maybe they were just good songs. We started the year off right with an unanticipated surprise. I don't want to say that After School came out of nowhere. I think it was always going to be a stop on weeeekly's path, and they just so happened to get really lucky with it. While the song itself may have played on some more modern ideas than the earlier Schoolgirl concept did, it didn't feel forced or rushed by any means. After School was yet another catchy song that caught on. They don't call it a hook for nothing. Make it sharp enough and it can catch on to even the smallest ledge.
I think you're really cool.
I'm not gonna lie, these two songs will always be tied together in my mind. They fit together almost too perfectly, as if they were literally made for one another. I think that ASAP was a surprisingly important comeback for stayc. Sure, their debut had turned heads, but they had to prove that they could hold that attention. Not to mention that they could do it with an array of songs. ASAP was nothing like So Bad, and that was appreciated. It's still just another catchy song, but who cares when they can seemingly hit a green light every time? Okay, let's be real here. This song didn't go too far beyond any of its circles, but I needed something to spice things up a little bit here. It was getting too repetitive, and not just because the same groups kept showing up. I felt like we were missing something. It had the same theme, same sound, same palettes. Where's the dark, the devious? Give me something that I haven't seen before and make me like it. Libido isn't a song that's for everyone, and that's okay, but I'm glad for once that such a song has managed to find the right corners of the world that it needed to get stuck in. Besides, any song that has the guts enough to call itself Libido deserves a spot on any of my lists. This is absolutely the kind of song that would play in some teen vampire movie. Given Taken felt surprisingly empty in comparison to Drunk Dazed. This song is filled with action and excitement. Don't get me wrong, I could not ask for a better introduction to this group, but Drunk Dazed feels like a finished product to what Given Taken had started. Also, I'm pretty sure this sound could put me in a fight or flight response now, so thanks for that. Drunk Dazed feels like an addiction. It's cloudy and distant, yet it's so fulfilling. It's like walking through a crowded room with earmuffs on, just catching glimpses of conversations. Drunk Dazed will probably always be the song that defines enhyphen's music for me.
I'm the mafia. I'm the mafia.
Mafia kept the same rebellious streak that was present in itzy's music before, but this time it came with something different. From vigilantism to straight up organized crime. Instead of crashing parties and raiding trucks, they were infiltrating the powerful and taking them for all that they own. Mafia was unlike anything itzy had put out before. It was darker, harsher, it had a real knack for characterization, and let that be its driving force. I think Mafia was the first time we really saw itzy jump out of their comfort zone and try something new. The song itself still felt so much like them, but something about the portrayal of the characters they played, it was different from what they were used to, and it worked surprisingly well.
I'm on the next level. 저 너머의 문을 열어 next level. 널 결국엔 내가 부셔 next level.
Talk about being influential. By this point, there's really no denying the impact that the song had on not only the K-pop scene in general, but also aespa's career as a whole. Everyone and their moms ran with not only the sound of aespa, but also the flow of their music. I'd argue with even more than just the change-up. The future is always seen as an advancement, and I think that's what aespa is trying to show with their music. It's not just supposed to be something different or unique, it's supposed to be what music could sound like years from now, even at just a glimpse. And as a society obsessed with constant advancements in technology as a whole, it only makes sense that we see the same appeal in art as well. Wanting to change it up and add our own inputs into the future is really only natural. I still don't really know what makes the song stick out as much as it does. Maybe it's the loud, noisy music being done so casually by a girl group, maybe it's the fact that they hit the nail on the head on their first try, or maybe it's their almost obsessive way of performing the song, but either way, it was a hit. Everglow wasn't new to extreme concepts, but this one went above and beyond, and they still didn't even break a sweat. Their power and charisma really carried the track, and I think that is one thing that people love most about this group. They really played to their strengths with that one, and I think that it turned out amazing. Punk rock was already making a pretty big wave in Western music, but this was definitely the song that brought it back into K-pop. Love Song was a product of its time. It was very reminiscent of older songs that drew off the same genre. It didn't try to change anything up, but I don't think it really wanted to. This is the sort of song that would play in an angsty teen movie about growing up and growing out of what you were doing before, and I think they captured those themes perfectly in this track. There are things that every generation is going to experience when growing up. The fear of the unknown, the fear of growing up and getting old, the pressure of making life-changing decisions at 17 years old, and most importantly, not realizing that there are people around you experiencing the exact same thing. I think this song really hit close to home on some of these issues, and maybe that's why it was as big as a hit as it was.
You want me to share it with you?
Stayc girls, it's going down. 다른 여자인데 겉은 화려해도 아직 두려운 걸 you should know I'm a good girl, yeah.
Stereotype was the peak of STAYC's careers. It was everything that they had done so far all rolled up into one neatly folded pastel packaging. I always wished that I had a song with the same message whenever I was in high school. Honestly, even now it can be a major confident boost. It's a powerful message, but I like the tender touches in between. You don't always have to blaze a trail out to prove yourself. Sometimes just being who you are is enough. This was such a major song for STAYC, and it's pretty clear why. It's sentimental and soft to the touch, maybe even a bit romantic. It's a beautiful song with an even more beautiful message, and I think that's enough to make it worthy of everything that it is. Sometimes the best way to get people's attention is to keep them from looking away. Zombie was the cutest, quirkiest comeback that these girls could have done. It was nothing like their debut, yet it held on to that horror concept that they seem to be pretty set on carrying on through. Purple Kiss songs always feel like a quick trip into a local Halloween store. Anywhere from the truly chilling to the somewhat laughable decorations can be seen in their music, and I think that that is amazing. No one ever said horror concept had to be dark and brooding, and I think the fact that they didn't go that route is what made this song stand out so much. Not to mention, it is the definition of an earworm.
You make me feel like 11.
Eleven may have come at the very end of the year, but that did not keep it from having just as much of an impact as all of the other songs before it. For as anticipated as a debut as 11 was, I don't think many were expecting IVE to blow up as much and as quickly as they did. IVE is a perfect example of playing your cards right. 11 was a bold move, but it was something that they knew they could make work. This fantasy-like sound ended up being perfect for the group. Add that with some familiar faces and a major budget thrown in there, and by that point, it's just a waiting game. 11 was a seriously impressive debut, and even more so when we look at all that they've done since.
Yeah, I'm tomboy. Yeah, I'll be the tomboy. This is my attitude. Yeah, I'll be the tomboy.
2022 feels like it was just yesterday and a decade old all at once. Ironically enough, I feel like this is the year that represents this generation of K-pop the best. Nearly all of the sounds and trends that floated by the K-pop scene in the past couple of years are present in at least one or two of these songs, and there's even a few new ideas bearing their heads as well. I hope looking back on this in a few years, 2022 will be a defining year, not only for the 4th gen, but also for K-pop as a whole.
Burning vroom 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 like a supersonic. 맘이 쿵쿵쿵 뛰어 미친 듯이.
It's always fun to start off the year with a big debut, and Kep1er was a highly anticipated debut, but that doesn't mean that there weren't some negative emotions still there. While it does suck that Mnet's shitty consciousness gets rubbed off onto their groups, it doesn't change the fact that people were wary about Kep1er. What made them exempt from anything that Mnet had ever done before? What made them special? Luckily though, they managed to get past all of that, and Wadada was only the start. I have no doubt that these girls will end up looking back on their careers and be satisfied with everything that they have accomplished by the end of it. As usual, Treasure pops up again out of nowhere. I'm not at all surprised that this song blew up though. It's a really fun track, and the racing themes incorporated in the music and the dance made it stand out. Not to mention, the album offered some other great songs to get attached to as well. 2022 was a pretty big year for Treasure, all things considered, and even though they still seem to be figuring out what their sound is going to be in the long run, I think that they're following a pretty good path to get there. If you thought that stayc were done after Stereotype, you would be wrong. Run to You kept up with their goal of always trying something new while still somehow carrying stayc's name with everything that they do. stayc encompasses everything that I love about K-pop. The bright colors and bold voices, interesting sets and catchy dances, yet they're not afraid to go a bit deeper and play with different emotions. Instead of hiding under the sparkle and shine, they let it speak for them sometimes. And I think that is part of what makes them such an appealing group. They do a bit of everything, but all with their own little touches thrown in between. I really couldn't ask for anything more. I hope you're ready for the weird and bizarre, because really, truthfully, that will always be a part of K-pop, just sometimes in different ways. Oh stands out, whether you like it or not. It's a song that you cannot look away from. It's all over the place and so fast-paced that you can hardly run alongside it. It's weird and maybe even a bit awkward, but there's no denying that that is its charm. It's another song that not everybody is going to get, but those that do can appreciate its almost defiant nature. This song did everything that it could to be something different, defy expectations, and it did just that. I'm not quite done with the Strange and Unusual yet though. We all know that it wasn't because of the song itself that this song blew up, but I'd like to think it was because of their dedication to the song and concept that the bits that did get a bit of attention got it because of that. This song is definitely trying to stand out, but it does play on some more well-known ideas than the one above it. It fits almost too perfectly into the quirky song category, but that just makes me love it even more. Plus, who cares what ideas the song draws off of whenever it comes out being this great anyways?
Maniac, 나서 빠진 것처럼 미쳐 maniac. 핑핑 돌아버리겠지. Maniac, Frankenstein처럼 걸어 maniac, maniac.
One of my favorite things is seeing familiar faces riding right alongside new players in the game. It's crazy to think that some of the same groups that started off this whole deal are continuing to grow and improve even at the very end. And they're not the only ones either. 2022 was a big year for Stray Kids. It welcomed another shift in their music, one that worked out surprisingly well. Maniac plays to their strengths. It's loud and wild, maybe a bit off its hinges. I think that's what makes Maniac different from some of their previous tracks though. It's the attention to sound in the track. Stray Kids have never been one to shy away from an unconventional sound, but this one really went to town on it. It feels like half of the song is made up of random noises and not instruments. They have a really interesting dynamic in this one, and with the sheer amount of unusual noises thrown in between, the title starts to make a lot of sense. I don't think there's anything that I could say that hasn't already been said. This was the song of 2022, just a few months into their career and they've already won. If you haven't heard the song, you've been living under a rock. A very thick rock at that. It's hard to explain just why the song is as good as it is. It's not the first time we've seen a more elegant concept on a girl group. It's not the first time we've heard a song with these same themes, and yet something about it made it stand out enough to make it worth talking about. Again and again and again. It's still too early to see where the song will be, even just a few years from now, but I'd like to think this is one of the ones that will push on through. Fearless is simple. It is what it is, and it is no more than just that. Sometimes that's all you need though. The minimalistic stylings just aren't something that has ever been super popular in K-pop. If you're going to go simple with one part of the song, then you better have something to back it up with later on. But this song doesn't have that. It fully committed to the black and white palette, and yet somewhere along the way, a tube of glitter fell into the mix. The simpleness leads to cleanliness, and the cleanliness leads to something a bit more sophisticated. The more you listen to the song, the more you get drawn into it, and the more classy it becomes.
You got me looking for attention. You got me looking for attention.
The only thing I remember from Summertime 2022 is this group. Forget taking the world by storm, they created a whole hurricane that we all got spun up in. Bringing something new while playing on old ideas is a difficult task, and yet they did it with ease. And then they did it again.
'Cause I know what you like, boy. You're mine, can't make you like, boy.
And again. It's gotten to the point where I expect excellence out of this group, and yet excellence has never been their thing. Their entire concept relies on the down-to-earth atmosphere within their music. There are hundreds of videos explaining why or how newjeans became what they are, but honestly, I think the answer is a lot simpler than that. Sure, the fresh and fun stylings are greatly appreciated, but more than anything, they just managed to catch the incoming wave perfectly at just the right time. ateez is probably the only group out there that can name a song after one of the most brutal and extreme ways of fighting wars I've ever seen and somehow get away with it. ateez have really dove into their storytelling the past couple of years, and I'm not complaining at all if it means we get music like this out of it. The anger and emotions built up in this track don't just feel like some story. Being able to portray these emotions, not as an artist simply creating music, but as a character telling a story through music is super impressive. But ateez have always been great at delivering on certain aspects of their characters that they sometimes play. Afterlife may not have been nearly as much as a song as the songs before it, but it still made way with what it had. It ran away from the somewhat fantastical concept that I've had going on from before and ran straight into what felt like a fairy tale. Afterlife felt a lot more familiar than what we were used to. It was still magical, but in a much more modern sort of way. It had the same elegant charm but without the flair from before. That didn't hold it back though. Just because the glitter outweighed the gold doesn't mean that it was any lighter. It was familiar but catchy, and that was one of the reasons it was able to stick around.
I'm anti-fragile, I'm anti-fragile, I'm anti-fragile, fragile, fragile, fragile. Anti-fragile, fragile, anti-fragile, 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 anti-fragile.
Anti-Fragile was like night and day to their debut. Anti-Fragile led with substance and let the rest fill in the blanks, and yet somehow it fit in perfectly with all that they had done already. This song was huge for LesSerafim. It took what little disappointment may have still been left over from their debut and tore it to shreds. This song is really just hook after hook. There's not a part of this song that isn't made to get stuck in your head, and yet it works out surprisingly well together. It's hard to define a group that's only a year into their careers, but if you force me to do it now, this is the song that I would lead with.
Yes,
It's still just crazy to me how groups like Idol and Stray Kids can have such a crazy year right alongside all of these new debuts that blow up just the same. Tomboy was already such a big hit for them, and Nude totally carried on that legacy even farther. Idol always had something to say, no matter the topic. Nude was a bold move, more so than any song that they had done before. They knew this pissed off a lot of people, but they also knew that that was the only way to get their point across. I think music that speaks about these things are so important, because yeah, Idol may not be the ones to jumpstart this revolution, but they're gonna be the role models of those who do. I don't think art alone can make a difference, but it can sure as hell inspire those who will. This is 4th generation K-pop. These are the songs that define a generation, and yet there are so many more out there, ones that I haven't even heard of probably. When I first thought up this video, I had a list in my head of some of the songs that I wanted to include, but only a few of them ended up making the cut. There are just far too many groups out there that have made an impact. I just can't include them all. That being said, I hope I got most of the big ones, the ones that really made a difference, the ones that will go down in history as the best or the most influential. It's still up for debate on what is or isn't 4th gen, both on the back and the front end of things, but this video isn't made to argue over whether the boyz are a 4th gen boy group or not. This video was made to show what I think defines 4th gen sounds and styles. In the end, it's just a number. It's just another way of categorizing groups for us. It's gonna happen all over again in the future, and hopefully again as well. And you know what? That is what makes it so important.